Super progressive. What is good? Very, very stoked for today's show for like so many different reasons. Starting off, I'd like to welcome my new co-host and one of my best friends, David Lovis. You may know him as Jurassic Trance on the socials, but dude, we put so much work into this stuff every single night. And now you're a co-host of the show, man. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, glad to be here, man.
Yeah. Oh, same. I think I'm the happiest person here to have another person here working on this with me. And now for our special guest, I'm going to say this little intro. I spend my time talking to pioneers of underground music, the Hernan Catanios, the Danny Tenaglias, the Nick Warrens, the Dave Siemens. I go to the gigs and catch up with Sasha and John Digweed. And there's going to be a point in the not so distant future where these pioneers that have pretty much been the center of the scene for decades and decades now are kind of around the same time going to start stepping back. And I stay up at night thinking, what is going to happen to this scene, this underground scene that we love so much, where these kind of centralized gravitational figures take a step back. But luckily for us, there are so many talented DJs and producers waiting in the wings. And not only are they talented, they have been tapped by the pioneers as some of the people that will be leading the next generation of this underground sound. And, you know, when you talk to all of them, all fingers point to our guest today, Tara Brooks. We'd like to welcome you to the show. Welcome to Super Progressive.
Thank you. That was an awesome introduction. And I wasn't aware that any of those guys, no matter how old they get or how much time goes by, would ever take a step back, not even a small step back. I can't even imagine it. So that was like a shocker. And I just don't believe it. I can see all of them just going like far past any of us are going to last,
Yeah, it's like,
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I look at them and I'm like, I also worry. I just want them to do what's best for them, no matter what. But yeah, very, very funny to think about. All right. So very exciting news brings you to the show today. You've been working on a remix of a really classic track from Motorcycle. And, you know, this is a track that came out in 2003. As the Rush Comes is the name of it. Thank you, David, for confirming. I always blank out right as I'm supposed to deliver the punchline. Motorcycle, As the Rush Comes. It is a classic trance track in every sense of the word. Now, my first question for you is kind of, how did this remix come together? And then diving deeper, how do you give kind of a classic track your own spin? Or how do you give it new life in the year 2023, literally 20 years after its original release?
All right. So that track is obviously a beautiful classic that, you know, I don't remember the last time I'd heard it before I said, hey, I need to put my little spin on that. But something about it and made me say, hey, why not? Because Motorcycle is Gabriel and Dresden and Jess, right? So when I realized like, hey, I want to do some passion projects, some things that are outside of the box, but I'm just in this time of my life where I want to do some things for me. And I reached out to Dave Dresden. I actually played in San Francisco last year, and he was there, and it was so great to catch up with him. And he finally got to see me play like after all these years, and loved a lot of the music, and just got me thinking like, I need to, you just have to put yourself out there. And of course there's been endless remixes, and they don't really, the way that labels work today after having the track for, it's 20 years, it's their 20-year anniversary for the release. And so it's not like everyone owns the track, and getting even in touch with the labels is hard. So I said, hey, can I remix that? And he's like, yeah, sure. It's not going to be, there's no guarantees it's going to get on the label, but it will be an exclusive remix. And obviously there's rules, but of course you can do it and just see what happens. And so that's how that came to life. And so the second part, we're gonna have to break these down so I can stay on
Yeah,
top
I
of
like
it.
asked you 6 questions at once, but I was gonna say, like, you know, this track has had a life with a whole generation of clubbers, but it might be brand new to a new generation. When you're remixing, how do you, with respect to what it is, how do you make it your own, more technically, let's say?
Okay. Well, I think it's very interesting. Like for all of my remixes, I really care about making them my like very original. But I think the most important part is to obviously keep the heart and soul of the track alive. So obviously the vocals and the bass and like the main sounds that really, emotionally for me stand out. And on this track in particular, like crazy that 20 years later, not really crazy, it makes perfect sense because that track is so good, is that the parts were really clean and beautiful. And, like production wise, I could have expected it to be, maybe not as, bright or loud after all or just something that would have been maybe a certain sort of distortion or something, some sort of tool back in the day, but yeah, the parts were great. And I just felt that, and I'm not the biggest vocal person, but when I use vocals, I like to use minimal parts. I have some of my favorite plugins that I use very, very lightly, like Tantra, some vocoders and stuff. But I feel like it's important to just, by keeping it my own or making it my own, it was just important to just have an old school, a little bit of a trance feel, but kind of make it kind of new school synth wave rave style. Something that you could play at almost any time. It's almost like an emotional, time where you could close with it. You could drop it in the middle of the set. There's still some drama to it, but I wanted to keep it. I've been, using a lot of break beats lately, and I was almost doing more of a breakbeat feel throughout it. And I said, no, I want to keep the energy really going. And so the breakdown was like the time for the 808 breaks. So I just feel like it was kind of a journey because I kind of go through many different versions, but in the end, it was just important to keep the vocals a little bit more minimal. And when I was in Bali playing at the W over summer and surfing, I actually used their studio there, and they had a Prophet 6, which was awesome because, I'm just kind of like, all right, I'm going to dive in and use it. And that's where one of the beautiful like pads I found, which was kind of the heart of the breakdown too. So it was just about taking the elements from my experiences and how I feel in the moment, my mood. And actually the breakdown ended up being kind of moody, kind of gave me this like old school, like Trent Moeller vibe. But I just felt like, yeah, everything just came together. But I think the most important thing was keeping the main sounds really like up front. And yeah, it was really fun. And I'm actually really happy with it.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, you sort of touched on this a little, but back to the point of like this track being 20 years old, and obviously the production techniques have really changed a lot. Like the plugins we have today are a lot more mature. So, you mentioned the parts were really clean on this, but were there, I'm just curious, were there any like specific tells that this was, 20-year-old material? And is there anything specific that you do when you approach, kind of bringing these into the modern age, these sorts of projects?
What's kind of funny is the only thing that I really felt it was just like the real deal old school progressive sounds that we're not hearing anymore, like whatever they used to make each sound, like the bass, like everything just felt really raw, I guess. And so I guess I don't exactly know how they made the original parts. That's another conversation. Maybe you guys should hit up Dave. But, it just everything, was just even that old trance feel that I don't really hear much today, like in the bass and like their ARP. And yeah, it was very like warm and yeah, I guess, I don't know. Sorry if that's not a great answer, but
no, that's perfect.
It just kind of felt like, yeah, whatever they did, it kind of just held it's it's something that I was kind of surprised thinking there might be a lot more work or something that I would want to change, but it just was pretty straight up, I guess. Yeah, everything felt like just was a lot not easier, but just I used a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
Oh yeah. And before we move on, my last question is, we call this track a classic track, but that's kind of like a blanket term. Did you have a personal kind of relationship with this track, or was it something that when you went into this remix, the track itself was kind of fresh to you just because you kind of missed it in your, upbringing of within this musical scene?
No, I mean, yeah, it was just one of the tracks that I used to love, like before I started DJing, it's something that I would hear and it was special. And it just, for me, I'm very connected to tracks that draw emotion. And it's just something that always made me happy. And, so it was a part of my just experience as just hearing it at raves, or like, just it kind of brought me back to the early days when, again, things weren't so serious, and it just was something that I always just loved the track, something that meant something to me. And so, yeah, it was just one of those things, just like Apollo Vibes, which we'll get into, the same thing of just a passion project, that a track of that I really loved and was part of me, kind of just like a part of my experience and my growth and my evolution of all the probably influences of, what I play or who I am today.
Oh, totally. And so the natural segue into Apollo Vibes, that remix was the first time that I got exposed to your music, and I'll never forget this. I did a reaction, like I was listening to the releases. I think there was 3 remixes included, and then I was going to make a reaction video to my favorite one, and yours was my favorite. And I didn't know who you were or anything, but I was like, "Wow, this is amazing." And so my question for you is this: when you went, and maybe this is obvious, maybe it's not, but when you went into that remix project, did you know that that track Apollo Vibes had such legendary standing in a very specific underground community due to its presence as the opening track for John Digweed's Global Underground Los Angeles?
Yeah, I love this question because you're going to get a kick out of this one. That Apollo Vibes has always been one of my favorite tracks on Bedrock. And it's interesting because when I've shared it with friends, for the people that might not be so familiar, like people don't get it. Like what's so significant about this track? It's like so minimal. And I'm like, and for me, it's a part of my life in the past where I have memories and experiences with that track, and just the breakdown and just the feel of it. See, I'm getting like goosebumps now. So the funny part is like, so 2 years before John asked me to remix it, I asked him to remix it because I realized, actually, good friends of mine, Dance Spirit, Chris and Reagan, they're no longer a duo, but they did some amazing, incredible music. And when I saw that they remixed Heaven Sent, I think that was the track. And I was like, wait a minute, like, what am I, like, I need to like get the brain rolling here. Like I need to, things that I want and, the things that I care about. And these are all passion projects. So who knows what's going to happen with it, but that's not, the most important thing for me is like, do I got to remix one of my favorite tracks and something that just meant so much to me and just was lots of memories, And so when I first asked John about it, he didn't get back to me for like a year or something like that. So I was like, okay, I guess that's a no. But then that's the thing. I had to tell myself it's already a no. I'm already like right where I am right now. So the most he's going to say is no or yeah, And then I just remember, so he didn't say anything about it. And then like a year later, about a year later, he was like, Tara, didn't you ask me to remix Apollo Vibes? And I was like, yes. He's like, all right. And so that's how that came to life. But what's interesting is like a couple weeks later, I saw on the Bedrock, like Facebook or something, that they did a poll asking about what's everyone's favorite Bedrock track. And Apollo Vibes was like the number 1 track, which is so interesting. I mean, I guess, so you guys know every single song, like you guys are diehard, but it's interesting because I would think there's so many great songs from back in the day. Like what makes, I love that so many people are weirdos just like me, and they felt that strongly towards it. And so that brings me to like, you know, when I make a track, especially for John, I have a hard time sticking in one direction, which is why I do a second one. I don't know if you guys caught the second one, and I called it Apollo's Vibe, which is like a little bit more. I love seeing your face right now.
Yeah, wait, that's news to me.
Yeah, I don't know if I knew about that one.
Yeah, I know, because one of them came out on the compilation, and then I think the next one, oh my gosh, my memory is that bad. Where the other one,
where there's one on Quattro.
Yes,
on one of the Quattro albums.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's another one, and I did that when I first sent John, I think one of my first or second releases. I did it with, was it Eunoia? I did Eunoia and then deeper into Eunoia. And like, again, what we were talking about being all over the place with genres, I have like in my brain, when I'm so excited about something, you know, it's, some people are like, this is what I want. I know what I want. For me, I'm like, but I can't just go this way. But if I get the opportunity to make this remix my own, there has to be another one going this way. Like I have to show like both sides. And so I won't let it go until I've done it, even if it goes nowhere. So I did that one, and usually they do pretty well. And the other one was really a little bit more melodic and beautiful. And the other one was more like straight edge, like in your face. But yeah, there's another one. Check it out.
That's really cool. I'm curious, when you're working on these and you kind of, you know, you've got ideas to take it in two separate directions. Is that, are you sort of working on them both at the same time? Like, you know, making a change here, saving it, loading up the other project?
Kind of, yes, like saving projects. And I think like I end up, you know, when I'll create a hook and realize that like, this is so dope, but like, Tara, don't force it. It's not working. So I will either mute the sound and go back to it later, or I will save the project and then redo it, and save the project and then work on one in a different direction. And then I end up having like 12 of those where I'm just like, Tara. And then I keep thinking I'm going to go back and it's going to turn into something else. Or one day I'm like, wait, that hook is going to go in this track. So it's a clusterfuck, I'm going to be honest.
That's how you end up like version 11 final underscore.
Yeah, you don't even want to see it. It's a mess. But yes, I am very all over the place and a little ADD here and there. And so I try to be organized, but I think there's something about my unorganization that kind of is like a beautiful disaster. Like it's like messy, but somehow that's when magic happens, when you're like, oh shit, there's that one hook that I like muted and forgot about a year ago, you know? So yeah, so that's kind of how that happens.
Definitely. And
nice.
So everyone remembers that track because John making it the intro to the Global Underground. But did you have any communication with Pole Folder at any point in the production of your remix? Because it was his original production. And I think that's interesting if like, as you know, when you go about remixing a track, if you go to the source material or if you just want to go in with, you know, your kind of a fresh approach without bringing so much of the past into it.
Right. Yeah. So after the first version was submitted, I think John sent it to them, and I didn't realize at that time Pole Floaters two guys.
CP's the other guy. CP, I think. Yeah.
Well, and CP is, I feel like, the one that was the lead on this track. And so our communication, well, again, I don't want to say who's whatever, sorry. But I had conversations with him, and they were really with CP, and they were really happy with it. And I was, it's just, I'm pretty stoked the way it turned out. And the fact that they were happy made me really happy. And so, yeah, it was kind of like, I don't want to send a track to any of them premature. I don't want to like, get nervous or change something I would take a risk on. I just have to like have it finished, and knowing that there's no going back for the most part, unless there was something dramatic, then I would revisit. But they were happy. So I was happy.
Oh, it's awesome. So kind of sticking with this, you see the shirts. We are clearly big fans of Bedrock and John Digweed. And it's printed in press, and just in conversations with him, it comes up. he's really identified you as one of his favorite people in the, I don't know, of planet Earth, to have open up a room for him. And to me, that's like one of the biggest compliments ever. But how do you, opening up a room for everybody's different. I imagine there's a little bit more, let's say, pressure when John's there next to
Right
you
behind you.
in the booth. Yeah. Like what's your approach specifically for opening up for John? What have you found that works?
Do you want to hear a super funny story from my first time opening for him?
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll try to keep it short, but it's pretty awesome because you guys are so into this. It's like I have no choice. So the first night, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So yeah, the first night, I've been waiting my whole life for this, obviously. It was in San Francisco at the Great Northern, and I flew up there, and I usually have like friends with dinner, have dinner, and just it's a really big night for me, so get everyone together. And a couple hours before the show, I got really sick. Like, I don't know if it was food poisoning or like a virus that came on, but I was in bed at a friend's, literally like sweating, shaking, like temperature, like I was not well. And I was like, there is no way I am missing this. You guys are taking me there on my deathbed. I don't care. There's no way. If I miss the set, he's never going to book me again, and my whole life is over. So my friend, I even had a friend that's a nurse, come over. She shot me in the ass with an anti-nausea because everything was just, yeah. And so I was in bed under like loads of covers, like shaking and shivering. And I was shaking and shivering so hard that my hands were like this, like stuck. So when it got close to being done, they were like, they knew we're going, like, no matter what, you are going. So like, I think the adrenaline and the anxiety and everything, survival mode kicked in. And so they're helping my friends helping me get ready, helping me get there. And when we're on the way, like I'm getting, like, all of a sudden I'm like getting better, because it's like, I think my body's in like, yeah, survival mode. Right. And my hands are still kind of stuck like this from like clamping. And in the booth, we had a bucket in case I got sick. And my all I wanted from that show, other than is for John to come early to hear me, and for him to give me a transition show, and to hopefully play with him more and release on Bedrock and all the things. And I was able to play my set. As soon as I got there, started playing, everything was like perfect. Like, I couldn't drink not even a sip of water, but I just had to like do my thing. Got in this crazy trance state of mind where I was just like in another place. And I played my set. I was completely fine. He came early, I think like 30 minutes early, like he does, because he's like one of the few nice larger DJs out there that actually cares to see and listen to the opener and understand the vibe and see what's going on there. And so, which is, I've always been so grateful for him for that. And yeah, and the first thing he says was, great set. I loved your tunes. I want to get you a transition show. And Kaz says hi. And and then I was so happy because I was okay. He had no clue that I was like dying. And then after the set, I felt better. So I was like, I'm going to go watch him from up there. Within 10 minutes more later, I was completely sick and they had to take me home. Anyway, so that's how the whole connection started, and the rest is history there. And sorry, so to go back to your question about how I think about opening for someone like John. Well, I always knew from the very beginning, since John was always one of my favorite DJs, I knew that since I'm kind of a weirdo, and I just figured he's going to like what I play because I'm so connected to what he does. And so I just, it was a time where I just really believed in my music, and my sound was a little bit more in one area, as far as not so all over the place. And I just knew that if he heard me, he's going to understand me, like I just knew it, and he did, which was great. But approaching the set, was just a lot more respectful and cautious. I mean, I would always be like that for anyone. But it was more like tapping into what I loved about his music and about his energy, and then just taking it down as many notches as I could, like playing it even my first time, especially playing it super safe. But what I found too with a lot of my music at that time, the deeper, more melodic, like little tribal, little old school, like little acidy and stuff like that, I knew that if I could, even the slower BPMs, you know, with certain tracks, like have a lot of energy. So it was about getting the crowd going. And of course, I'm there for the crowd as well. But it was just about staying steady, never just like, you know, escalating or trying to like prove something. It was about playing really good fucking tracks and just creating a really beautiful vibe that was a little bit darker, a little bit trippier, a little bit like, but also very uplifting and very soulful, and just something where people, like, when by the time he got there, you have this crowd that is like in this beautiful trance, they're chilling, they're dancing, they're grooving, but their energy is just here. So when you hand them over, basically I'm like, here, you can do whatever you want. He knows that when he starts after me, and especially in a lot of the other places I've played with him, where there's a lot more energy on the dance floor because it's WMC, like people come at the second the doors open. Like I've played shows where it's packed and he's sitting behind me for like 45 minutes and says, keep playing. And I'm just like, Tara, don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up. And, you have to, you know, I had to trust in myself and know that I have to give this crowd more energy right now. Like, I'm not trying to outplay anybody. I'm not trying to steal the show, but my job is to make this dance floor exactly where it needs to be for him. And so I would always play like a range of sounds and styles, but it was just about taking these little journeys, ebb and flow, going up and down in energy, but always handing it into getting them to the place where when he got them, especially because he plays these long sets, he can do whatever he wants. And I think that's what he appreciated. And the fact that he said, Tara, I've never known one track you've ever played. And that was like the best compliment, because when I play music and when I hear music, I want to hear things I've never heard before. And I want to have my mind blown and I want to Shazam it. And I want to know what the fuck is that? And that's what I want to do to people. So that's kind of like my thought process. And I think as time went by and the more that I've played with him, my style also started to change. It also started to get a lot faster, and it's a lot, you know, and I really grew and evolved. And so sometimes I'm thinking, I will always take that spot. You know, it's kind of like Eagles and Butterflies, how he used to play before John all the time. And now he's like just headlining everywhere and doing his thing. You know, you could grow and evolve, and, you know, and there's always a beautiful set that can be played, especially for John. And I will always do it because I love him so much. And I love the crowd that comes, and they really, some of them, like, you know, they're like, it's funny. I get like all sorts of Bedrock fans, or some of them are looking at me like, when's John coming on? No, I'm just kidding. But or they're you know, most of them are just like the ones that, you know, I'm new for them. They're like this, and then they're like, okay, like it's like
a discerning ear.
Yeah, they're very, very like hardcore and judgy, and I good for them. And you know, I appreciate that, because then after the fact they're like, okay, she's all right, you know.
Well, so. I definitely think you've earned their respect. Like going back to what Will said about they're all nominating you for the next new breed, but it's everything you're saying completely resonates with me, because I was gonna say I don't. So when Will and I saw you at the Superior Ingredients, I don't remember if it was originally announced that you were gonna open, but once I found that out, it was almost like it was like a double header. Right? And
thank you.
But I remember when I first walked into the club, and I do this thing where, like, if I'm really liking what I'm hearing, I'll like get my phone going with like voice memos so I can just like Shazam it later. And so you were playing this one track, which I literally went out and like bought it the next day. This Tifra, this plastic replicant track.
And that was like this psychedelic one, right?
It's like, it just had this like almost like a classic vibe to it, and it was like nothing I ever heard, and kind of to your point, it was like it was very different from something that John would play. So I just think like that was one of our questions, was sort of how do you play stuff that's like this energetic, but also show kind of set the room up for someone like John. And I think you've already kind of answered the question, but I definitely just wanted to share that story.
Yeah, that makes me so happy. And at the same time, I think like, sorry, like before I forget, but you know, the more that I would play with him, it doesn't mean I'm getting more like comfortable, you know, like, but it meant like I had to stay authentic to the new sounds I'm playing. And it scared me because a lot of the new electronica tracks and like, you know, like Liquid Earth, a lot of these tracks are like really fucking fast. Like they're fast. But the beauty of it is like what I've tried to do is say, Tara, don't pay attention to the BPM. If someone sees that BPM, I can imagine John would kill, like he, you know, if someone tries to do like disrespect it with that or without awareness, like it's like you're not going to get that spot again. But it's like those tracks slowed down or played out a certain way, and if you can stop yourself from looking at the BPM and just listen to the groove, like you can actually, you know, play a lot more tracks you would never expect to be able to play. And so that's that. And it's an experiment, which is also scary for me because my whole life in music with John and those sets are a lot of experimenting. But, you know, the more that I evolved and the more that I played with him, you know, the range just continued to get a little bit wider. So hopefully he was happy always.
Yeah. The last question I have about this whole subject and this night specifically, David has this awesome clip on his phone. Because I think he and he probably didn't want me to bring it up, but he's like, you were obviously playing a track that he really liked because he had his phone recording a brief little moment, and we can hear John say, "Sorry about the mixer." Now we know that John uses the Allen and Heath Zone mixer. That is, let's say, unorthodox, or it's very specific to John. Like I'd say most of the time you're using a Pioneer mixer. It's what most DJs use or the clubs use. Now, as an opening DJ, are you kind of at the mercy of the tech of the person that comes on after you? And are you trying to like figure this stuff out on the fly if you're not so familiar with it? Or is it something you prepare for?
Okay, so a couple questions in there.
Sorry.
I cannot remember that gig. Were we using the Allen and Heath, which he usually uses? I thought we were using the V10. I thought there was a change. Like I thought I would have to pull up that email because I've played, and forgive me, I've played so many sets since then that I don't remember, but I think there was a change in mixer and it was something new. So I can't remember, but I'll get back to you on that because I can we'll go back to those emails from and see like what it was. But even though I'm an opening DJ for him, I'm still been doing this for like, you know, almost 17 years now. So
of course.
I still, you know, as you know, regardless of them playing, I still have a mixer to choose from, and they can, a place like that, do the switch out.
They do like, a swap. Got it.
They can. I mean, I usually, like, since I'm so versatile and I can adapt to most things, and I like a challenge. I've always, like, when I first time I played on the Allen Heath was when I opened for Sasha, like 10 years ago in San Diego, and I was like, what? Okay. And when I found out it's a different mixer, I freaked out because I was like very new and like maybe been DJing for like 5 years at that point. I don't know, a little bit longer. And like I remember just like Googling and being like, what is going to be the difference of this? And you know, so so usually, you know, unless they request like, can you please use this mixer, you know, usually I do love the Pioneer. Like I've always had Pioneer, and that's my go-to, my preference. But I've used the Allen and Heath enough where it's fine, you know, like in their special mixers. And I know Sasha had like a special mixer, and I can't remember. I know John, I have to check on that, but I feel like if he said that, it might have been because it was something different and maybe something new, but like it's a mixer. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that I might have to learn on the fly if I want to use something more like the effects and things that, or it's like, hey, don't press that button, or that's going to the oscillator, you know? So for me, it's kind of like, again, another risk, another challenge of adapting on the fly and just knowing, you know, figuring it out as you go.
Oh, it's epic. And okay, so now I have moving on in the interview, I have some questions for you that kind of touch upon your experience as a DJ, because you've been, you know, you've been DJing for a while now, and you've picked up, you know, you're a pro. You have your methods, and you've picked up some tips along the way. I am curious about some things. How are you as a DJ and a selector? how do you specifically find new tracks? Because the answer, like people like using blanket statements like crate digging when describing like the process of back in the day of going into a vinyl shop and just like digging around. But, in 2023, there's infinite promo lists. There's infinite promo inboxes. What's your kind of method of, you like playing music that nobody else has ever heard and you pride yourself on that? How are you finding these tracks?
All right. Well, every couple of years, my methods of finding tracks, I say, change, but for the longest time, which has not been the last couple of years, it was beatport digging. But like when I would find, a specific track that I love, I'm sure a lot of people have this similar method. They, find a track that I love, and then I would look at the label and look at all the other tracks, or I would look at the producer and then look at all their other tracks. And it was just like a rabbit hole, digging and digging and digging. And I can imagine that's not like some really like secret system. Now that we have technology like Spotify and other things too, because I do a lot of, I've found that listening to a lot of my favorite artists and every different genre, even like old school, like rock, something like that, I'm listening on Spotify these days when I'm driving and stuff like that. And then from there, I'll it's kind of the same thing. Like I'll dig away, I'll listen to Seinfeld's like radio, like radio station, something like that. So I find new tracks that way, and which has been really awesome. And then I do the same thing, digging there. And it's just like endless digging, So it's different I would say Spotify and what else have I been using? Promos, I gotta say, I used to do so much digging through promos, but I really don't anymore. I know that's bad, but like when I've taken the time, I feel like I found, doesn't matter if it's like the most amazing label for me, for what I'm looking to play, I don't find the gems. It's not that they're not there. I just think that for the amount of tracks on there, and if I'm not looking for it specifically, then it's very rare that it's going to just find me, And so 1 in 100 tracks, maybe. I guess that's always, Beatport can also be harder. Like, I mean, any platform, depending on the time and what's coming out. But yeah, I've just found that promos have never really, I've played so little. So that's just a lot of time going through them that I'd rather just be digging where I know to be digging, So yeah, so it's different platforms like Spotify and I guess friends sending tracks. I don't know, just trying to listen to other people's music, and that'll spring an idea of this sounds like that. It's just always a rabbit hole and like just a digging situation.
I mean, I'll speak for David and I when I say that we are very lucky to be on some promo lists out there. And I think we've liked maybe 1 or 2. And this is not us. This is not us being like pricks or whatever. Like 300 tracks, like we'll go through. And it's just like, oh my gosh, it's just, there's a sea of music out there. Mm-hmm. But David, like we were preparing, I had a set in Cardiff, I am by no means like a DJ. I just get these cool little opportunities to do like one-offs, but I was DJing in Cardiff the other week, and I kind of had the same experience where it's like, so Danny House played this one track called Absence by Nug Supreme. And I'm like, oh my God, what's this track? Find out it was released on this label called Spring Tube that I never heard of. All of a sudden, my set is 90, not like the whole thing's a Spring Tube compilation, but that's my base of like, and then you get discovered through all these artists, and it's amazing. You didn't even know about it.
Yeah. And I forgot. That's actually the second way. I was like thinking like, I gotta know it's not just Spotify. What the fuck? But no, the second way of digging is when I hear exactly what you said. Like when I was at Movement this year and Seinfeld, of course, well, I couldn't Shazam his track, like he's one of my favorites. And I feel like his production is very different than his DJing sometimes. And although he throws like some of his, I mean, I'm sure he plays a lot of his stuff, but I love the fact that he's kind of like me, like super versatile. And depending on where he is, like his music will shift. But like that's like the other main way. You hear that one track, if you're able to get it, or you check the set later, and then from there. So it's like it's about live artists that you really love and respect, and you hear that one track. And actually sometimes, because I don't go out very often, I'm usually, if I'm not like DJing on the weekend, things have slowed down a little bit right now. But I'll try to go out and support, like for example, Shanti Celeste was here a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to see her play. I love her production, and as a DJ, she was phenomenal. And just hearing, and I heard her play some of the tracks I was currently playing, which is always like, fuck yeah, especially because if I'm playing music that I don't, not a lot of people are playing, I don't know what it sounds like on the other side. So to be on the other side when someone plays a track you're playing, that feeling is always like amazing. So yeah, that's definitely I think that's the best way, because it's live. You know what I'm saying? That's the experience. If you just heard something in this moment of this amazing artist, and you hear how it sounds on the system, and then you dig from there for sure.
Totally. All right. I'm a little curious about how you initially got into the scene, and I'm not gonna kind of paraphrase what you've said in other interviews. We'll list the past interviews that you've done for our viewers to go enjoy, but to bring something new to the table, David mentioned this, that I posed this question to my community. Like, I always thought the New Breed mix compilation was cool because it showcased kind of the next, who's hot right now, and like what sounds we should be paying attention to right now. A lot of them pointed to you, which is awesome. My question,
when was that?
This was 4 days ago.
What?
Yeah.
That feels that's amazing. I love hearing that. Thank you.
No, definitely. And I was like, hell yeah. I'm wondering, what were the mix compilations, which were so much more present, kind of when you were getting into the scene? Which mix compilations left an impression on you? What were the literal CDs that you had that you were playing that kind of got you into this world of music? Or were mix compilations not really a part of your journey?
Honestly, like mix compilation CDs, I guess, were not really part. I mean, obviously Renaissance and, like that era of music was always influential, and like Ministry of Sound. But like, yeah, I was, I grew up, I'm from LA, and I grew up with like a lot of San Francisco influence, like Miguel Miggs, Mark Farina, and Lisa Shaw. And I always feel like I was more, I guess I started on vinyl. So I was just kind of like a white label shopper and just digger. And I wasn't even DJing when I was picking out records. So it's more like a listening experience for me. And then when I started DJing, like on vinyl, within the first year, because I was working in the service industry, that's when everybody was switching to CDs, to play DJing with CDs. So yeah, as far as like that question, yeah, I wasn't, I guess, a very big mix compilation listener, but just more, records, listening to random records, white labels. Like I was always kind of like the weirdo, like old, like John Kelly stuff. And I don't know, like I'm just kind of all over the place.
Oh no, it's really cool. And now another question. This is kind of like related to my project about going into the past, uncovering the history of this underground music. And it's interesting because, so my page, Super Progressive, kind of documents the history of progressive house, right? Mm-hmm. I feel bad about this, but it's not intentional, that there is not a lot of documentation on women's contributions to the development of this underground sound. And it's not like I'm not looking for it, but it's kind of not documented. So you really have to dig deep to find the Sandra Collinses of this scene. And I'm wondering for you, if you could educate us right now so we can know where to look on who were kind of the pioneering female figures in the development of this underground scene, even specifically on the West Coast for you.
Yeah. I feel like when you said Sandra Collins, that was like my number one. Definitely, I would have suggested. And then, we have like I don't think Heather and Colette are they Chicago or were they LA? I can't remember.
See, I don't. DJ Heather?
DJ Heather and Colette, yeah. Like those were women that were, really present around that time. At the same time, I remember like DJ Irene and Lisa Lashes, So you're totally right that's why even when I started, like there was very few women. I'm sure there was tons of women doing it, but very few women that we were hearing about, So, yeah, that's like a very good point. It's like when I read that, I was like, yeah, Sandra Collins, like who else? Like, right? Like who else was there? And now look at where we are today. But that was definitely, I know. I bet you I always looked at that part about it because everyone's like, when you started, like, where were all the women? I said, you know what? I bet you there was a lot of people like me all over the world that were doing their thing, working hard and like, putting their heart into music, but didn't have a voice to share it, or were kind of treated the way that I was in this man's world of like, how did you get there? How did you get that gig? Or, not being taken very seriously. And then, but yeah, so I believe that there had to have been a lot more people like me out there, because now you look at like Perel and like Cynthia and Tare and these, oh my gosh, like Kim on Foxman, like there's so, like Anja Snyder, like there's these women all over the world that I can imagine they've been doing it for a really long time. And just how long did it take to be able to have a chance to be heard,
Totally. Well, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it was just like a point of curiosity from my end. So totally.
For sure. No, it's good. I was always like wondering where are all the ladies?
David, you want to talk a little bit about the kind of the favorite clubs question we have? We're kind of jumping. We're kind of jumping around right here, but
Well, actually, even if we're gonna go back to DJing, I was curious about one thing, which is so you mentioned in your early days you were buying a lot of white labels and finding records that way, and I feel like today there's this tendency for people to kind of want to play all modern stuff. With maybe an occasional classic here and there, but I'm curious, do you attempt to like blend when you're building a set modern tracks and like some of your old, maybe less known favorites, and what are it's not always easy to kind of mix the old with the new, so how do you navigate that?
I feel like in the very beginning, I remember like, you're so motivated and so excited. And like, I'm like, I never want to play the same track again, stuff like that. And so it was just constantly like cycling through new music. And then you get to the point when you're playing so much that you're like, hey, like I have to play this new track in these different cities. And just because I'm not burnt out on it, but like, like it's okay. Like I had to convince myself that that's fine. But when it comes to it's kind of interesting. I feel like I'll get a bunch of new music. And when I say new music, that might have just come out or might have been something I found that's 10 years old, from digging. And, I don't really think about the time that it's come out. I just think what's appropriate for the night. And, but I guess to kind of answer your question in a different way, when I'm going to create like a set for, say I'm playing at Desert Hearts or something like that, like I have 2 hours. I think about all the environmental factors, which is kind of interesting because sets like that, everybody is considered a headliner. Everybody has 2 hours, and it's a 3-day party that the music starts and it doesn't stop. So, who's opening for who, it's just going and going, of course. But for me, I'm like, oh, is it sunrise? Is it sunset? Is it 4 a.m.? What are we doing here? So all of the environmental factors first come into play. Who's playing before and after me also comes into play. And I like to be fully aware. Am I playing after hard techno or what am I, so all of that stuff, I create a playlist. And in this playlist is like all of the newest music that I have that I'm excited to share. And a lot of tracks I've never played before, because part of my craziness is I want to play brand new tracks, whether it's, like I said, came out now or 10 years ago. I want to play it for the first time on that system. And I want to hear it together like that. Like I'll listen to it at home, but like I want it to be played out for the first time in some of these experiences. And then I will, and it's not about, is this track, mixing, when did this come out? Is this modern or not? For me, it's all about just how does it feel? And so I like for example, in, the 2 year ago Desert Heart set, I mean, that was quite a journey in that set. I mean, from playing, you know, indie dance, and then playing electronica, playing Detroit techno. You know, it's and then throwing in like, I don't know if that was the set I did, the like a Claude Von Stroke, Andre, like, you know, just throwing in something twisted and different, and you know, when you want to slow it down or like reset a tone. So for me, it's like I'll have the vision of what I'm going to play for the night based on all the environmental factors and everything. And then when I'm in the moments, I will observe the crowd, and like, and then we go from there. Generally, I would say 90% of the time what I've put together is actually what I'm going to do. But you know, every now and then I'll bring a track in from another playlist of, you know, from something I played. Oh shit, I just remember this new track, you know, that I played in Detroit like 6 months ago, whatever. And so it's more about like, for me, it's weird, like it's like track by track, it's about this really energetic, you know, collaboration, because whatever they're doing, the crowd, is what I'm, you know, we're what I'll throw something in that's like really off the wall to see if they're down, you know what I'm saying? Because not everybody, you know, like these, because I've been, you know, everyone, sometimes the people that know you, then the people that don't, and the people that know you, sometimes they want, oh, I want that melodic, deeper, progressive stuff, and the people that, you know, so, and I don't want to in my head, I'm like, I don't want to let them down, but I also want to educate them with something new. And then there's the other side that they've never heard me, and so, you know, I want to, you know, like they're probably very open-minded. But so I just do, knowing that there's, when I see people, oh my God, they're the people that love this from me and they love this from me. It's like, for me, I just have to get out of that place of like pleasing everybody, knowing that no matter what you do, not everybody is going to love you. And they're not going to all like it. But also telling myself, if it's on the USB, if you took the time to put it there, fucking play it. Like, play it. What's the worst that's going to happen? So you have those tracks staring you in the face, you know, you know, and generally it's the more like underground, like breakbeat stuff that, you know, is scary. But it's also like, fuck yeah, when you play it, you're like, why didn't I play, you know? And so there's I try to take a lot of risks like that. And to answer your question, when I play a track like that, I'll probably mix it into something uplifting that gives like a sense of like soulful or like emotional. So I'm mixing break beats that are like kind of dark and acidy and trippy with some like melodic like house to like, so you get this beautiful like uplifting feel. And it's like a psychedelic trippy, but like it's happy, even though it's like dark and kind of like, fuck yeah. Sorry. So that's kind of where I'm at.
No, that's super insightful. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then so now bringing up what Will was leading into, so it kind of, you know, how you talk about hearing tracks on different systems. You know, what is like the one club in your mind, if you have one, that stands out as you know, maybe one of your favorite clubs?
Well, this is a tough one because there's been quite a few sound systems that are just like so incredible. Obviously, Output, it's kind of hard to like match. That one was really, really nice. But at the same time, I also know that I'm not playing at 100% sound, you know, but the booth, my thing is the booth, obviously, of course, like I'm so sensitive and I'm shorter. So, you know, and it does affect, people don't get it. Like when you have your monitors way up there, I'm like, I'm right here, you know, I'm okay, you know, and then the decks, you know, stuff like that. But stereo was like, obviously like, whoa, like, you know, that was completely just so warm and beautiful and crisp. But one of my favorite dance floors, I'll say, and booths and everything was just flawless, is Rainbow Serpent Festival in Australia. That dance floor. So that dance floor is literally, walking through that dance floor, like thousands of people, like there wasn't a spot that you could stand without having a conversation with someone, but like not yelling. And the sound was just like around, it was like definitely one of the best dance floors in the world. And the booth and the sound is like incredible. Yeah, like definitely like check that out if you have a chance. But
where in Australia is that?
It's like outside of Melbourne, like an hour or two. Unfortunately, like they had the fires. That was like the last time that I played, they moved it to the city because they had those crazy fires. So I don't even know where things are at, because then COVID hit and that whole thing. But let me just tell you, like that dance floor And that's me at like listening to Patrice play, or like, you know, Trevor, like just any friends playing up there, and just the sound was like out of this world. So that's another spot.
Oh, it's super cool.
Nice.
We want to be respectful of your time. We have two more topics that we're interested in. David is kind of the production focus, the producer of our little duo, and I'm the surfer. So we're going to start with David's production. We're going to start with David's production questions. He has some production questions for you. Then we'll finish it off with some surfing questions. But David, take it away. You wrote out some really nice questions.
Yeah. So, I'm definitely an aspiring producer, which I feel like a lot of people, you know,
check out the synth rack.
Oh yeah, this whole.
Oh yeah, look at you.
But it's fun. I feel like it's hard for people who are like really passionate about this music to like stay away from trying to make it themselves. And so I think there's a lot of people out there who are interested in like well, I guess the easiest question is like, in your studio right now, what's your favorite piece of equipment, or even your favorite plugin that you've been using lately?
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting. It's like one of my goals for, you know, I don't want to get too much into this, but like during COVID, just reinventing myself, my sounds, like I also got very disconnected. And I'm trying to finally tell myself it's okay to like feel this way. Like you can't force music, you can't force learning something new, you know. So I let a lot of things collect dust. But you know, I feel like sometimes I go for some of my go-tos. Like I've been using the VPS Avenger. I don't know if you've used that one before. And like, I mean, the Roland 303, this thing is super fun. You can see that in the video.
Yeah.
So that I've like been super into acid bass the last couple of years. And so I really do love this, and I'm still kind of dialing it in, but like it's definitely a lot easier than, you know, a lot of other things. And then I got this in the last couple of years, this sub 37, and I've been using it a bit, but need to dial it in more. I use Logic. So sometimes when I'm traveling and I come back and I plug something in, then it's just like not working. And it's this whole like, and then I'll end up going to my go-tos, you know, plugins. I haven't used the Dave Smith in a while, the Mofo, but that's super awesome. And actually when you were asking me these questions, I'm like, oh, I got to dive back into the Dave Smith. So, but yeah, so those are some of, let's see, as another plugins I use. I actually been using Roland Cloud a lot. They have
nice.
Their Roland stuff is like amazing. So I don't know if you've checked that out, but like, you know, I mean, I know of course there's like the analog, you know, the synth heads and everything, like the hardware heads, but like, you know, to have that many amazing plugins like at your fingertips, like is awesome. Like it's all about how you use them, you know. So anyone that really dives into the cloud, the Roland Cloud, is going to have a lot of fun. So definitely, if you haven't checked that out, check it out. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's super cool. So when you first are I guess when you first really have an idea about a track, I mean, I guess, you know, it doesn't always happen when you're right there on the computer. So what's your like what's your first step to like getting a track, you know, like starting a project? Like when inspiration strikes you, how do you kind of save that and then turn it into a new project?
Well, if I'm like on the road, I'll like make notes, you know, like if I hear something, like I'll do what you did. I'll take the voice note and I'll record something if I can't Shazam it or whatever. And then I'll take that and sometimes I'll sing into my phone or just do things that I don't want to forget a melody and I don't know what the track is. So it's just a matter of like, yeah, so I'll just take a lot of notes from, you know, when that inspiration comes in, because I know me, if I don't do it right now, I will forget it in 5 minutes and I'll be like, oh. So that's one way. And then, you know, it's kind of funny, like I was kind of joking with I'm so excited because I don't know if you guys know Lee Coombs. He's badass, like an old school like electro and like breakbeat and acid, like really known for his acid. He's from the UK and he's now in Orlando. But he's an incredible engineer, and I found him because I was playing a lot of his music and, you know, digging deeper during COVID. And I reached out. I was like, I just love your music. Everything I play, it hits so like it's like the cleanest production. And of course, he happens to be an engineer and works at a school teaching in Orlando. And so now he's doing a lot of my mastering. So I've been learning some really great techniques from him. And I think it's just nice to have a second set of ears. And while he has a strategy and everybody has their own way of making music, I am very all over the place. So but I always start with drums, to get a beat going. And but yeah, like some days I'll start with, I really need to add this bass line, and I have that in my head. Other days it's like, what was that melody? And so, I think taking notes and listening to tracks that I really love for references. That's what I've been doing lately, is going back to old school tracks like The Shaman, like I don't know if you've heard, Mr.
Oh, yeah.
So there's I'm right now, the more that I'm hearing these like super awesome melodic house riffs and hooks and piano, I'm like, gosh, I really just have been finding a lot of inspiration there. And so just listening to these old things and trying to recreate something that's not theirs, but like has like the feeling,
Absolutely. Yeah, and that kind of leads me into this. So like, I feel like any producer is working on something. You'll pull up a synth preset, or you'll play something and it sounds really good. And I feel like there's endless amounts of stuff you could add to a track. So it seems like one of the biggest challenges is kind of like taming yourself and knowing when you have enough in a track, right? And because you might even have like 10 different ideas all in the same project file. So how do you kind of tame things and say, I'm gonna keep it with these three, because you want to avoid going overboard?
Yeah, well, the answer is you don't. At least I don't. That's been one of my biggest. That's been one of my absolute biggest I guess challenges. I'm I'm getting better of keeping it simple, because what they say, less is more. But I think it's about I'm learning as I grow and get better at this thing called life and in production, that adding can just complicate things sometimes. So I'm starting really focusing on subtracting. And even today, going through a track, I was like, that sounds dope, but like, do I really need that? That's the question, and creating space. And, I think what I didn't realize back in the day is, when you can create that space, you think the more you're adding, the more energy you're adding and the bigger it's going to be. But really it's, there's a chance you're just taking away from the main sounds shining and being more in your face. So I think that it's, it's because I, for a long time, wasn't really sharing a lot of my process and my work with other people. And so it's just me, myself, and I critiquing my own music and hating it or destroying it or loving it. Then the next day, and then ending up with, just 12 projects. And it's about being able to share and having and the second someone else comes in the studio and they're like, oh, I really love this, or I don't know if I, that 1 second of somebody else hearing something. And I think that going back to being a woman and very early on in this industry and having people accuse you of, how did you get this track? Or like, you're playing and they're like, oh, here's the volume on the mixer. It's like, excuse me, just treating you in a way that was so, kind of like disrespectful. And whether they realized it or not, or ignorance, it always told me in my head, I'm going to do this all on my own, because I'm already getting like this pushback. And it was so hard just to be heard and to be taken seriously. And so I think that mentality kind of hurt me in the long run, because I wasn't sharing. I was like, I'm just going to finish this, and then now I'm so grateful that I'm over that. And it's like collaborating and sharing music and everybody's, you realize, oh my gosh, everybody's working together and it's okay. And so I'm grateful now that I have, and like even John Tejada, like I'm working with John now because he lives in LA. He's amazing. And so just, sharing ideas, I think is the best, because like immediately someone else who's not in that you respect and understand, they understand your sounds, that person will hear things you might not. So I think it's just a matter of like being open to sharing and also sticking to your gut too, so that's kind of where I'm at with that. So being able to like listen and just make sure that you're giving it the space to breathe,
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. And I think that kind of ties into my last question here, which and I'm sure getting feedback from other people is part of this too, but when do you is there ever like a a moment where you decide that a track is ready for you to kind of test it out on the dance floor? And like, how do you know when you're finished with a track?
Once again, I don't, because it's never done. I'm just kidding. It's like, did you guys ever see that meme with the skeleton? They're like, the mix, it's like a skeleton laying on the mix board, like it's not finished yet. That's like that's literally like me trying to finish tracks. Like it's not done yet. You know, like again, I think the biggest part has finally been like saying, Tara, you need to finish and move on, because if you don't, you're going to stay here forever and you're going to destroy it. So I think, you know, when I go to send off my track to get that final mix and master, you know, I think that I'm in my head, I'm thinking, hey, this might not be done for me, but it's done enough. And I'm going to let Lee tell me like, hey, this is great. Like, you know, you might not need this, or, you know, just little things like that. So it was just about, again, getting that verification. But on my own thing, I'll probably still be working on the track for 10 years.
That's awesome. Yeah. Into some surfing questions now.
Oh, no.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for
thanks a lot for that.
That's awesome.
That was awesome info.
For sure. It's like, again, I think the best part is knowing that like now, especially like that times have changed, like it's okay. We're all in this together. And it's like, you know, you can't, I think when you're working by yourself, like this me, myself, and I thing, you know, like you're your own worst critic. So something actually, and one more thing I'll say, then we'll go to the surfing, is that one of the tracks I released on John's, which track was it? Beautiful Thing, the remix I did for Randall Jones, which is a great story because Randall, I surf with him now, and he lives in San Diego. He's a really good friend. It's funny, before we ever met in real life, like we connected online and whatever, we talked about, you know, surfing, and he asked me to remake, or I don't know if I asked him or he asked me, whatever it was. I was like, okay, that took me forever. It was like the track, I was like, are you serious? Like he finished, Bushwacka did a remix, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so behind. And the funniest part is the first hook that I made for that was super, in my head, trancey, and like I loved it, but it was like I couldn't let it go because it was so like poppy, and I was worried like, oh, everyone's gonna think I'm so trance, and I'm trying to go in this direction, but I don't want to be judged. Like it was all this mental noise that was just ridiculous. And that track, probably 6 months later, I just kind of like, I'm going to come back to that. And then I had a friend come over and I was like, oh, let's like playing some old tracks. And I pulled up the original. And that's what I use today. In the end, the damn original with that, not cheesy, but that melodic arc that sounded in my, like, kind of like synth wavy, but kind of trancey. That's the one I ended up going with. So your first idea usually can be the best. So that is like another lesson. And I said, you know what? Stop listening to this noise. It's good. It sounds beautiful. And I played it opening for John one night, and it was the one track, and I hadn't even like finished it yet for sure, but it was the one track somebody sent me, what track is this? And I was like, okay, you know, you got a little verification there. So yeah, always listen to yourself in the beginning.
Oh, it's amazing. Nice. Thank you for that. All right. So when I started this project, Super Progressive, I had just moved out to Los Angeles right at the beginning of the pandemic. Not only did I discover kind of this underground world of music, because so my cousin, his name's Ned Shepard, and he produces with Sultan.
I know that I know his name. That's your cousin? That's awesome.
So I move out to LA. He gifts me an old record box of Global Underground and Renaissance mix albums. And I'm like, holy shit, this is so sick. Thank you, Ned. Literally same exact time I am learning to surf in LA. So underground music and surfing are forever just like same two life-changing things that happened to me in the same week, basically. First question for you is, you are a passionate surfer. Do you get the same stoke from surfing that you get in the DJ booth, or is it more like yin and yang where they're completely different, but it ends with the same stoke?
Okay, so it's, yeah, like I actually really love that question. And I started in early pandemic as well. So that stoke is real. You know, I also broke my nose with it. So I've gone through all sorts of things with surfing. But yeah, you know, it's very different for me. There's, you know, there's parts of it like there's parts of it that's the same, that gives me a lot of the joy and the happiness and the healing. There is parts of it that I find like are in the same like vibration for sure, the euphoric feeling. But surfing for me, and maybe it's just what I'm going through right now with music, maybe this will change later on, but like I feel it's the only thing that I'm doing. I guess this is the similarity with DJing, that when you're but you have to be in the zone. Like you have to be in that special zone, which is not all the time. Like you could be playing and having fun, but when you're in that like special locked in place, that you have to be in that place to give it the same feeling as I get when I'm surfing, and I'm literally just completely present, no phones, no noise, no nonsense, no stress. You're not thinking about anything else but what is going on right then and there. And, you know, when you're DJing, of course, every set is so different. And when you have those very special sets where the whole thing is like, you're done and you're like, what just happened? Those are the sets where I can say that's the same feeling, because you're just completely present. And if the world ended, you wouldn't even know it. You're just right there with your surfboard or in that locked in groove, and just everything is just perfect, and everything just feels right. And so those, yeah, but there's also other things that are, you know, like you said, kind of like the yin and yang for sure.
Do you have a favorite break to surf in LA? I was always so I started like my first year pretty much at Topanga, but then when I discovered that you can kind of go up and down the coast and really explore through finding these different breaks, that's when I started spending weekends with me and my best friends, waking up at 4 a.m. and going to all these different places. Like, and it ends up being my all-time favorite breakout in LA ended up being Point Doom, Little Doom area, where it looks like you're in Jurassic Park. Like, it's the only place I've ever been where you're surfing waves, looking up at mountains with a beach in between you. It's just like so crazy. Just as someone who surfed in Los Angeles, what do you have a favorite break?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually surfed Topanga today in the rain.
Like I am so jealous. Like, yeah,
it was crazy today. Yeah. So I have a love-hate relationship with my friends for teaching me to surf at Porto. And when I say teaching, I mean leaving me to get my ass kicked. No, you know, yeah, but I mean, and El Porto in Manhattan Beach is like notoriously known for their closeouts, their walls. It's like more of a short border break. And I'm on the longboard, just getting washing machine, just like getting my ass handed to me. But on the bright side, no, I'm kidding. They looked out for me a little bit. They gave me some pointers. Like, I'm grateful for them. But yeah, it's really one of those things where, you know, your friends that take you out there, they're like, oh, see you later. You know, everybody just wants to catch the next wave. But I would say when winter came to Porto, that's when you knew, as someone who's a beginner, needs to go find something more gentle. So we would go to Sunset, and I love Sunset. Yeah, yeah, I went there last week for the first time in like maybe 9 months, because it doesn't break at like it only breaks more at low tide unless the waves are much bigger. So yeah, and you know how it is getting in and out at high tide. There's like a pain in the ass. So Topanga has actually been one of my most go-to, but I also live in Hollywood, so I'm really far. And then the Cove, I don't know if you know about the Cove, is a very special place.
Wow, you don't have to reveal the secrets.
Yeah, there's no cameras, so you know, people don't want to go if they don't know what it looks like, you know. And then, like you said too, like my sister lives in San Diego, and I used to live in San Diego. So when I go back down to play, like, well, my favorite beach in Southern California is San Clemente at San Onofre, which I'm sure you've been before. That's like one of the best. It reminds me of like a Waikiki. It's a far ass paddle out, but the waves are always awesome and gentle. And even when it's bigger, it's like the shape is super clean. And, you know, even when it's like huge there, you're still like feeling not so like, you know, not, like you're still feeling like you've got this, because it's just a little bit more gentle. So yeah, and then of San Diego, Cardiff, and San Elijo. But yeah, I spend most of my time at Topanga, even though there's like, you know, there's a lot of people have a hard time there because of the local energy there. But I've become friends with them all, so I'm in a good spot.
So funny you say that. So Topanga is really where I learned, and like we, you know, they get Topangri over at Topanga. But me and my friends, we called ourselves the Topangels, the Topangels.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Good vibes.
I call ourselves, we're over there, we're the good vibe tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's so funny because there was an article the other day and it was talking about, and it was a guy with a Topanga tattoo and they called it Topangri. It's so funny.
So next time you surf Topanga, which might be tomorrow, have you on your way back to Hollywood, because I lived in Little Armenia, so right next to Hollywood. But right on the PCH, there is a smoothie place called Juicy Ladies. And it is so freaking good. I just want to give that recommendation. Like, so good. Espresso almond smoothie every single time, me and my boys, you know, and it opens at 9. So you get out for the morning sesh, and then at 9 it opens and you get your smoothie. But I think you'll love it.
That sounds really, especially because you get that extra espresso in your smoothie. That'll be good. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's called Juicy Ladies. And that's okay. I just wanted to share that rec. And now my final question is, so like, I don't know, maybe I don't think it's just specific to us, because you said you've made friends in this scene that also surf. 2008, Globe comes out with this film called New Emissions of Light and Sound. Globe Surfing. It's a surfboard film. And they enlist Sasha to do the soundtrack to it. And this soundtrack is unbelievable. It's like Air Drawn Dagger vibes, super atmospheric, super breaky. But I'm just asking you, as a surfer and literally a pro DJ, what do you think, like, you know, what naturally brings these cultures together? Because you find it around the world, not just in LA. Go to Australia. It's like the same people that are paddling out are on the dance floor later at night. What do you think?
For sure. They love to party.
What do you think brings these cultures together?
That's a great question. You know, like DJ Harvey surfs, and there's a lot more, like, I actually keep trying to get creative and thinking, because I love surfing so much. And I'm focusing on getting booked in more surf destinations, because so I don't know if I mentioned, but you know, with everything with COVID, the industry, everything coming back, agents leaving, everything changing, things have been kind of hard, you know, like for DJs that started before the whole TikTok and Twitch and all those things. And so we have to get creative. And I think, like, it's so, like, surfing is so special to me. How can I, you know, be a part of surf and music culture together, like you said? And so I've been talking to some friends in Costa Rica that I've played for Electric Animals that surf. And, you know, I think it's important to have this, like, surf and environmental awareness that can go, you know, like throwing in events and doing like beach cleanups and mental health awareness, all the things. So, you know, I think I'm getting off the topic with your question. Wait, tell me your question again.
No, it was literally, I was just wondering what kind of, and I love that you're traveling for not only DJing, but working and surfing into it. But I was like, what do you think just brings these cultures together, where there's this like natural kind of marriage between them? Yeah.
It's like the stoke that you have for surfing. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you're done playing or you're dancing, stuff like that, it's like that euphoric feeling, you know. And that's where I think they go hand in hand, because after surf, like, you're exhausted, but you're also fired up, you know. So it's like, I think that it's just like a similar energy that you take with you. But like, that's why, but obviously surfing and partying don't go so great together, which is why I think more people in the dance music community should surf, because it will help. I mean, the whole mental health thing today is like really hardcore, really intense. I'm also doing life coaching, by the way. During COVID, I got my certificate, because who knows what was happening with, you know, music at that time. And I've always like taken after my mom, who's like a therapist, and want to help people, and everyone's going through something. And one of my biggest things is like surf therapy, ocean therapy, nature therapy. Like, you know, you don't have to surf if that's not your thing, but like, I feel like the more people coming together to do nature activities, is going to be just very helpful for, you know, the you know, dance music community, or everybody really. But like, it's something important to me to keep expressing that feeling, so I can share with everyone, like, you know, like, look what it's done for me. And although I'm not perfect or in the greatest place of my life, but how can I shift this? And when you shared that with me, by the way, I was unaware of that. The first idea was, I need to do this, so how can I do this? So maybe we can talk more about ideas, but I would love to do a score, and which I've never done before, but I know I can do it, because I love surfing so much and I love music so much. And it's interesting, when I've watched movies like the revenants or like these like, you know, really beautiful, this next level cinematography, like I actually hear things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I could, like, I hear things and sounds, like you talk about the inspiration, and I'm like, I know that I could have made, and I know that's like crazy to even say that because I'm on another level than these guys. I have no idea in that world, but just that's the way that my mind works. I'm more of the, like, I'm technical, yes, I'm not an expert in the technical side of things, but you know, I feel like I don't want to say like Rick Rubin in a way, how he is just, I don't know if you guys have been listening or watch or read the Creative Act. Yeah. And it was the most like beautiful thing I could have done for myself, to give myself a break and say, oh my gosh, like sometimes I feel like I'm that emotional person where my creativity, my emotional connections to sounds and style and just ideas is like my greatest strength, you know? And it's like, how can I be a part of more other people's experiences with their music? So I can, because I just feel things differently, not saying that, just in a different way, where John hears me, he's going to find something he loves. And in these tracks, you're choosing this track, which is mind blowing that you love my track, the Apollo Vibes remix, whatever. But it's like, I'm trying to think of creative ways how I can incorporate, you know, just doing something more. And that idea with doing like something, making like a film score or something for surfing would be incredible. Even if it's my own documentary of like, I had this idea of DJ turned surfer, the mental health side of things, and then doing a music to that as well. So I actually have something to share with you guys that I don't think you might have seen, but over during the pandemic, there was everyone was doing Twitch, and DJ Tennis started his Life and Death, but he started at the very end. They had a contract going, and instead of everyone just doing a live stream in their room, it was something creative. And I got together with a friend, Grant, who does visuals for like Red Bull. He's amazing and he's awesome. But so we made this like this video that is and it's on YouTube right now, and it's I did the music for it, and it was like a mix between break beats and electro and like and some like really beautiful electronica, but it was trippy, and it was a whole like journey. We called it a journey through space and time, and that was like my first time putting music to, you know, like to, you know, just like acts and a story. So that was so much fun, and again, I think that I should do that for surfing. I have to. So if we need to figure that out. I would love to do that. And so I'd be like, hey, Sasha, I'll ask John to ask Sasha. No, I'm just kidding. how can I get, yeah, he's going to be like, okay. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's awesome. And all I want to say is before we close this out is I just want to do nothing but encourage you to keep following your passions all the way through, because it's very inspiring to hear on my end, and it inspires me to do the same. So just freaking send it and go for it. Because,
send it. That's a surfing. Send it.
Yes, just like do it, because it's about that stoke, and it's about that feeling. No matter what kind of area in your life is, the fact that you're just going for it is freaking epic. And keep doing that, and we will do the same. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. You know, everybody, again, we started this interview about the motorcycle remix. Go check it out. The link to that is going to be in the description of this podcast episode. And same thing with all of Tara's socials, contacts, whatever. It's all going to be in the info. So yeah, Tara, nothing but mad love. And thank you for joining us today. This was awesome.
Much.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, and David, bro, you crushed it, bro. First episode
yeah,
off.
David. I would have never known. David's like such a professional. He's got the mic there. Like, you guys did a great job. Thank you so much. It was really nice to hear, especially about what a lot of the people are thinking and feeling. I care so much about that, and it really is great, and I appreciate them still listening. And you know, we're gonna continue to evolve and change, and it's like, but just having that support is so important today. So like what you guys are doing, supporting all these artists and giving them a chance to share where they are, like it's so important. So thank you guys for doing this.
Oh yeah, totally. No, it's our it's a privilege and it's an honor. It's mad fucking fun. So we're gonna keep doing it. So
awesome. Well, you guys did amazing. So thank you so much. And let's stay in touch for sure.